Homecoming was a feast for Ohio State. 42-3 winners over Minnesota, but somehow the Buckeyes are still hungry. Welcome to the Boren Blitz. It is the beat. It is Monday. We have former Ohio State captain Zach Boren back, as always, to break it all down. And I tell you what, that Saturday night performance, Zach, pretty impressive in the Horseshoe. I'm sad it's the only time we're in that stadium in the month of October, but the Buckeyes sure made the most of it. I hope you did too.
Yeah, when's the last time that's happened? The Buckeyes have only been in the Horseshoe one time in the month of October. Maybe not ever. I don't know. We need to look up that.
Yeah, it can't have happened before. It doesn't make any sense.
For sure. Well, especially for them to now go basically 4 weeks until they play in the Horseshoe again against Penn State. It'll be interesting. But, man, did they put on another show. I know I think people in the stadium were a little taken aback that they didn't get off the field on the first drive, right? And kind of Minnesota's going down the field. But guess what? It goes back to the theme time and time again for what we talk about on the show, how this red zone defense is next level. It is elite. They dug their heels in, forced Minnesota to kick a field goal, and then the rest of the game, my goodness, man, that defense was unbelievable. The Ohio State offense came out firing. You saw what this offense is capable of when they open up Julian Sain a little bit more than obviously what we saw against Texas and Washington. Those throws are there. The creativity is there. That offense Saturday night looked dangerous. And when you package that with this Ohio State defense, it could be a very, very special season.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we talked about last week, Zach, is that over the course of the year with Ryan Day's approach that, like, they're probably not going to ever finish in the top 10 in pace of play because it is this long-term view and playing 16 games and limiting the number of snaps and reps on the bodies of these Ohio State offensive players. And it helps the defense as well to play at a really high level. But you saw, like, an ability to change gears within the game. Yeah, there was a little bit tempo early on from Ohio State, but also just a willingness or maybe a recognition that coming off of, like, you can't let opponents dictate the way you're going to play an entire game. And if you have opportunities to throw to Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate, sometimes you have to force that issue and not just say, well, we're going to try and run the ball and bang our head against the wall. And I thought that was, if people are of this mindset that they're evaluating and monitoring the progress of Brian Hartline as the play caller, like, Saturday night was probably what everybody wanted to see or envisioned when he was out there. Like, look at this. He's got the two best wide receivers in the country, and he's going to turn them loose in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head that they went a little bit faster pace, specifically in the first half. And we've talked on the show again, they have the capabilities to do that, right? They rank towards the bottom of college football of pace of play. But guess what? They can turn it on, and they are going to do that. And I think Ryan Day, as you know, he even talked about after the game about how he is deliberate with how he brings his quarterbacks along. And especially when you have this kind of defense, they're going to be ultra conservative about it. You saw what they can do when they go up tempo. You saw when they get defenses on their heels with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, and Max Clare had a bunch of great catches, right? Like, you saw what they're able to do. And so they're going to use that to their advantage. Maybe they're not going to need it. Who knows? Maybe they will need it against Illinois, right? But you never know when they're going to need it. In a big game, they will start fluctuating the high tempo, the slowing the pace down. It's just a changeup. And Ryan talks about it all the time. How can you give defenses different looks while also, right, trying to tempo them in certain situations? And they obviously practiced that on Saturday night. They were super successful at it. I think, to your point, that's what everyone envisioned going into the season of a Brian Hartline offense, up tempo, throwing the ball around, spreading teams out. So it's there, right? And I almost love that Ohio State up to this point hasn't really shown that, because now as you're a defensive coaching staff, a defensive player for an opposing team, you're like, wow, I need to get ready to buckle my chin strap up, right, and ready to face 35 rushes, 40 rushes in a game and be slow paced, or I got to go up tempo, right, and have them spreading me out and literally have to play in space the entire game. And so when you're able to do that and keep the defenses guessing, man, it can lead to some big chunk plays.
What was your favorite throw from Julian Sain on Saturday?
There were two. The deep ball to Carnell Tate up the sideline, deep in
Whew.
their territory. My goodness, man! And obviously, I was at the game, so I've got no idea what it's like from TV. But when you are at that game, that deep ball is beautiful. I
It
mean,
looked like a rainbow.
it's dropped perfectly right in the breadbasket, man. It was absolutely perfect. But I'll tell you this much, and probably people aren't going to be talking about it. The throw over the middle, and I forget which quarter it was, but the throw over the middle to Max Clare as he was just getting hit in the mouth. That's all you need to see, right? Because the big question marks about Julian Sain is how is he going to do with the physical smaller guy? Those things. He took a shot straight to the face. Max Clare, and to me, people aren't going to be talking about the game or the day afterwards, but to me, that shows that he can be an elite quarterback.
I'm really glad that you said that one, Zach, because it was the first one that stuck in my mind. As we've looked at, week after week, we're monitoring the progress, we're seeing the growth, we're seeing the development of Julian Sain. All right, he did this, and he faced down Texas's defense. He went on the road against Washington. He was really accurate, making throws that even against air would have been impressive against Grambling in Ohio. Like, that was the one thing that we hadn't really seen, was him take a big physical shot and hang in the pocket. He did that. He took this shot there on the throw to Max Clare, got that still perfect accuracy. It looked like, I think it was to Max Clare. There were two targets down there, but from my vantage point, it looked like that was where he was going with the football, and stood in there, got back up, popped back up. But even on the touchdown throw in the red zone to Jeremiah Smith, he was willing to hang in the pocket, buy time, wait for Jeremiah to uncover. He's been good on the move. He's been good in the pocket. He's now taken some hits. Like, I'm not sure if last week there was a bunch of strange conversation about, is Julian Sain just a game manager? Is he just surrounded by a bunch of talent? I don't know why that conversation exists. It shouldn't. Every week he's showing a new element of his game, and he's only started 5 times. He's going to get better.
Here's the other thing. If people say he's a game manager, he's an elite game manager, right? Like, guess what? You still have to be really good at managing the game. You can't just stand there and call the play and then not do anything and be like, oh my God, yeah, he's just a game manager. Like, you still have to make the throws. You still have to have the time. Like, there are so many different things that you have to do. And so, to your point, if people give that argument that he's just a game manager, guess what? He's an elite game manager, and I know there's a ton of quarterbacks. For example, Tom Brady, who people are saying might be the best quarterback ever, who was an elite game manager from that standpoint. He wasn't the most athletic, didn't have the strongest arm, didn't do all the crazy throws, but elite game manager. I think Julian Sain would be very happy with that. But to your point, he's starting to show, not starting to show, he has shown, and he showed even more Saturday night, that he's got the elite arm strength and can make any single throw that's needed of him.
Yeah. You mentioned right away, Zach, that it was weird we're at this point now where this defense is playing at such a high level that even giving up one scoring drive on the opening possession of the game and doing nothing after that, we're still like, well, that was strange. How did that happen? No, they immediately battened down the hatches, gave up the field goal. That was it. And it's a reflection of how great and how immediately the impact has come from Matt Patricia. By the way, turned out pretty well with Jim Knowles leaving Ohio State. I don't know, upgrade possibly. Didn't anticipate that. But that we're like, they gave up 3 points on the opening drive. That's very out of character for this team.
You might need to fact check me on this. I believe.
No, I'm going to accept it.
Yeah, I believe the total yardage for Minnesota was 167 total yards Saturday night.
Let me see if you're correct. 162. You overshot the mark.
Okay, my bad. 162 total yards on Saturday night. I don't think people realize how elite that is. Like, that's total yards. Ohio State's not playing Grambling, right? Ohio State's not, hell, you play a high school team and they should be able to put up that many yards, right? In a game. To be able to control Minnesota, a Power 4 Big Ten team who was coming in 3-1, right? And everyone projected they weren't going to be at the bottom of the Big Ten, middle tier Big Ten team, but to hold them to 162 total yards, especially when probably, let's do the math.
66 were on the first drive. Yep.
There
I
you
knew
go.
that's
I
where
was,
you're
I
going.
was going to say 60 something, right?
Yep.
60 something on the first drive. So then you literally hold them to less than 100 yards for the rest of the game. That's elite. That is a defense that's willing to adapt, to change on the fly, to make adjustments. That's a hats off to Matt Patricia, the entire coaching staff, the players, because when you have to adjust on the fly, and they obviously did, and it goes quick. And even PJ Fleck after the game talked about how they literally adjust drive to drive and will make adjustments. That's unbelievable. People don't do that in college football. People actually don't even do that in the NFL, right? Let's be honest. They don't do it in the NFL. So for Ohio State to be able to do that and change up their looks all the time and play to their strengths, it's elite. Like, there's no other word for it. I think you see everyone across the country just ooh and ah over this defense, and everyone should be.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the conversation that you and I had over the last 7-8 months about, Matt Patricia and replacing Jim Knowles and all this was like, well, you don't have to come in and completely revolutionize Ohio State's defense. They were the number one total defense in the country a year ago. They won the national championship. They still have a ton of talent back, even if it's relatively inexperienced. And I think the way that Matt Patricia has fit together with the existing staff, with Larry Johnson, with James Laurinaitis, with Tim Walton, with Matt Guerrieri, and then adding in a bunch of the new wrinkles that you're talking about, has been like so vastly exceeded any expectation I think anybody could have had, because now we're in this new point where we're saying, yeah, they were a number one in total defense a year ago. They won the national championship, and somehow this defense might be even better. Like, that's a crazy thing for us to be talking about.
It's insane. And the other thing is that I don't think people give enough credit for is the way Matt Patricia came in and not only adapted to the talent that he has on this defense, but was able to also get these defensive coaches to buy in to what he wanted to do. Because let's be honest, for my goodness, Austin, I can't even, back before my time, Ohio State has been a 4-down defense. Probably probably the last time they weren't truly a 4-down defense or showed different looks may have been the 90s with Vrabel and Finkus and Fickle and those guys, right? Ever since then, they have always been a 4-down defense. For Matt Patricia to come in and literally work with these coaches for the very first time and get them to buy into doing something different, whether that be 3-down looks, whether that be bear looks, right? Different things that they're going to do with the front, whether that be freaking have 2 down and stand up 5 guys around the ball, right? Like, those are different looks that not only Matt Patricia has to get the players to buy into, but now you got to get the coaches to buy into it and willing to coach it and teach it, right? And they got to go through a whole thing of, Larry Johnson's used to teaching 4-down. Guess what? You're going to have a little bit more different technique going in a 3-down than you are a 4-down, right? You got to be a lot more hat in hands and square guys up and be able to move and do those different things. Well, guess what? You got to get those coaches to buy into that and teach it. And if they don't, that's when you get holes in this defense. But this defense has been so sound. Everyone has been on the same page. What they've been able to show, and you brought it up. I know I made a comment, I think, on last week's show. Everyone was literally going after Ryan Day for hiring Matt Patricia, letting Jim Knowles walk, hiring Matt Patricia, a guy who had been out of coaching for a year or two. The last time he coached had an awful experience with the Detroit Lions, right? Like, the list goes on and on and on. And everyone was saying Ryan Day is the laughing stock of college football and what he's able to do. Well, where are those people now, right? Where are those people now, and what do you think they are thinking to themselves looking at this defense? And what do you think Jim Knowles is thinking as he's given up 42 points to UCLA, who got the brakes beat off of them by UNLV and God knows who else? I mean, absolutely terrible, right? So you have a coach who came in here and got people to buy in, and you've got Ryan Day who trusted this coach and what he wanted to do, and it could not have been a better match.
Yeah, I would imagine that Jim Knowles is wondering why he decided to cast his future with James Franklin, but that's none of my business. I'm sure that every bit of feedback he received was, if you're not happy at Ohio State, you're probably not going to like it with James Franklin. But that's none of my concern. I guess we'll see how that goes at the beginning of November, the next time the Buckeyes are back in the Horseshoe and they play Penn State, which is just an absolute disaster right now. However, Ryan Day himself, he still seemed a little bit edgy, Zach, after that game. He win 42-3 over a Big Ten opponent. It's homecoming, things to feel good about in all three phases of the game, because even special teams getting involved. Had Brandon Ennis with the throwback.
Can we
Lorenzo.
talk about just that for a second? Like,
Yeah.
seeing that Saturday night, I remember turning to the people I was at the game with. I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in Ohio Stadium. The coolest thing. That play, to do it, I'm like, that I had a couple more adjectives to it, some flavored adjectives, but I was like, that was insane. Like, insane. It was the coolest thing. I love it. Ohio State and Ryan Day, and even really under Urban Meyer, have totally, I don't want to say gone against trick plays, but Ohio State's not known for trick plays, right? They barely ever pull them out. And for him to do that Saturday night, it was freaking cool.
It was awesome. And the execution was not as easy as you'd think. A lot of moving parts there. Berm and I were leaving the Horseshoe on Saturday night, and he was like, I thought Lorenzo was faster than that. It's like, Berm, he had to run 40 yards down the field to get there to be behind Brandon Ennis to catch that football, and then he ran 40 yards the other way with it. Like, what do you want him to do? That's a lot of effort.
I thought he was flying. Like, I thought the dude was moving.
I was like, come on, give him a break, man. But
I thought he was moving, man. I thought it was great design. It was perfect execution. And that's hard to do. That's hard to replicate in real time, right? You can do that in practice, but it's not the same in a game. But yeah, man, that was a cool play.
Yeah, kudos to Ohio State.
Yeah.
So all three phases got something to go. Now, coolest thing in the Horseshoe.
Back to your point, though. Back to your point about Ryan, right?
Yeah.
I think he knows he has been a head coach at Ohio State long enough that he knows how much media and how much attention is around this Ohio State football team. Not just here in the city of Columbus, but nationally, how many eyes are on Ohio State football and how many times people talk about Ohio State football. And he knows that if his players and his program starts listening to the press clippings and they talk about how elite the defense is and how the team's better this year than they were last year and how this team should be repeating for the national championship, that can take a lot of attention away from what you're supposed to be doing, right? It can also relax some guys around there, and that's when things get tripped up. And we've seen it in the past when Ohio State would get tripped up by the Purdue's, the Iowas of the world, right? We've seen it many of times. Ryan Day is trying to do everything possible to keep this team focused, narrowed in, keep the blinders on, so to speak. He is taking a page out of Nick Saban's playbook because Nick Saban built a Hall of Fame career around this, of having an elite program, elite players, and keeping them on track. And that's what Ryan Day's doing. And let's be honest, I know we're not talking about this right now because we're recapping the game on Saturday. But this test on Saturday coming up against Illinois is going to be a tough test, right? Because we talk about the defense. We talk about the defense. Brett Bielema is going to do everything possible to control the football. They are going to bring extra offensive linemen in the game. They are going to try and run the football and just milk the clock against Ohio State. That is going to be their game plan. In Ohio State defense, Texas, would try and run the ball a little bit, but Texas is still going shotgun, right, and spreading you out and trying. It's going to in a power running scheme from that standpoint and try and come downhill and play inside of a box. Michigan's done it the last 4 years, right? Yeah. It's their game plan of how they think they can beat Ohio State. Brett Bielema and Illinois are going to do the same exact thing. And the thing about this test is you got to figure out what personnel you're going to because Matt Patricia and this defense is going to be playing completely different personnel this Saturday than they have previously throughout this entire season. And this game's going to get you ready for Penn State. This game's going to get you ready for Michigan because it's going to be same playing styles. So all Ryan Day's trying to do is get these guys to say, hey, listen, good job. I'll pat you on the butt tonight, but guess what? We better turn our focus to next week because it's a real challenge going to Champaign, Illinois with what Brett Bielema and this Illinois team is going to throw at us.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think that he was, because normally it's that 24-hour rule and get to the champions dinner on Sunday and enjoy the win for your night. I don't think Ryan Day enjoyed a 42-3 win over Minnesota that much. And I'm not saying that he's getting, tired of winning or there's certainly no complacency creeping in. I think that's what he's fighting off with this message when he's talking about being desperate and hungry. That started on Wednesday. He was bringing that up after practice when we talked to him. And that's what I asked him on Saturday night after the games. Like, you mentioned that, were you feeling that was creeping in, whether that was a message to himself, whether that was to his team, whether it was coaching staff, everybody involved? It's like, you've been around Urban Meyer. You have, we've been watching and monitoring the Nick Saban dynasty, and Ryan Day is never, you couldn't directly compare him, to Urban, to Nick Saban, to Dabo Swinney. He's always had his own way, but this, like, he's become, he dropped a Navy SEALs quote on Saturday night. I know that he did, had that reading and had a guest speaker in for the coaches clinic that also came through the Navy SEALs. He's become, I think, even more process driven than at any point of his career. And that this next evolution is pretty interesting to watch, because he was already successful, and now he trying to sustain that. It's like looking for the next challenge, the next edge. I'm really enjoying watching it in real time, because that's what's hurt. Like, let's say Dabo Swinney at Clemson, an unwillingness to adapt, to challenge yourself as the head coach, to be presented with new ideas. Like, they've only played 5 games. I'm not saying that they've just clinched back-to-back national championships, but the road to get there, I think Ryan Day has, again, this isn't really even talking about Minnesota at this point, but like, he is finding ways to make sure that the knife doesn't get dull for himself.
I think, and I don't know this, Ryan has not said this to me. From my perspective, though, I think the end of last year, whether it be the end of the regular season through the playoff, changed him so much and he will tell you, for the better. And it's all because it gave him experiences and got him into basically a routine and synchronization throughout the year on knowing what buttons to push. And from an outsider's perspective, I think Ryan is just leading the charge, because he knows as soon as he relaxes and is like, I have a damn good team, which, hey, James Franklin has been outspoken about having the best team he's ever had. Dabo Swinney has been outspoken this year about the best team they've ever had. Look where those two teams are at, right? And I think Ryan is taking a kind of a dose of his own medicine in vocally telling everyone this is where we're at. His mindset is that way because he knows, as the leader of this ship and the leader of this program, the moment he stops thinking like that, everyone else is going to start thinking about it. And so he's going to continue preaching it. He's going to continue believing in it. I truly believe that there was a part of him that thought, hey, listen, we are so talented and we are so hungry and we're so good that we're going to beat Michigan last year and into last year's game. And all we need to do is go in there and manage the football game, and we'll be good and we'll go on to the next week. Well, once that loss happened, he had to reshift his mind, and you saw what he did throughout that entire playoff. He was never happy. Ever happy. It doesn't matter if they beat the brakes off of Oregon, beat the brakes off of Tennessee. It was always that next game, and he was ready for it. He knew after that Texas game that they were going to win the national championship because they knew what they had against Notre Dame. But guess what? Mentally, he didn't flip the switch off. Out to the media, the way he was talking, never flipped the switch off. It was always, we have something to prove. We are not elite enough. We have to get better. And you saw what happened when he did that and the way the players responded. He is absolutely, he wrapped that up, and he is literally opening it up again as this year goes on, because he is taking that same mindset and making sure that this program stays hungry each and every week, and realize that, guess what? We're not going to read the press clippings. We're not going to realize how great we are until after the season, when hopefully we're raising another national championship trophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the way. 5 wins already in the bag for Ohio State. Get us out of here on the blitz with some 3 and out, Zach.
Yeah, I think we all got to talk about, and we didn't even bring him really up today besides the one catch, but Carnell Tate, man. Like
Whew.
Carnell Tate is elite. I know Jeremiah Smith had an unbelievable game again, but Carnell Tate, I think going for 183, right? The threat of him downfield is so good. And it
Yeah.
helps Julian Sain so much because all he does is threaten this secondary every single week of the team that they go up against. So Carnell Tate, man, making big catches, doing big things. Huge one. Julian Sain, man, the dude's here. He's arrived,
He's
right? And I hate putting it that way, but the dude has arrived. And for everyone who had doubts about him, everyone who didn't think, he could make the throws, he was big enough. He is showing everyone that he's tough enough. He's got command of the offense. He can make any single throw. He's super accurate, do all those things. And then come on, the third one, like we could talk about so many guys. Like I thought the secondary was freaking locked down. Like they finally, I think after the first drive said, all right, screw it. We're playing man coverage and guys are manning up and we're freaking going toe to toe the rest of the game. So I could name so many dudes, but the defense in general, giving up 162 total yards. That is elite you can get, man.
Yep.
And so the entire defense, like I said, we could sit here and talk for hours about plays that were made, things that were done. But man, just in general, hats off to them, man. They deserve all the love in the world.
That's right. And defense travels, so the Buckeyes are going to need that. As you mentioned, on Saturday, back to work in the Big Ten, back on the road against Illinois. That's going to be a big noon kickoff game, 11 a.m. Central Time. So I think that was the other reason that Ryan Day was on edge. Like you lose those 8-9 hours from a primetime game, then you have the early turnaround the next week.
Minnesota should have been big noon. It's insane that not even big noon, just a noon game in general. It's insane. And then you're going to have Penn State for sure at noon, where Penn State is like, it is made for a 3:30 game. Penn State is made for. Like it's
be a great compromise.
It'd be a great compromise. All those games should be at 3:30. The big game should. I even think I had a discussion. I know we're wrapping this up. Ohio State, Michigan should be at 3:30 every year. I hate to say it should be at 3:30. I will take that hottest take down to the grave till the day I die, that the Ohio State Michigan game should be at 3:30 every Saturday after Thanksgiving. I think there's a chance, in 2 years that could change and like go to the middle of the season, whatever. Screw that. That's terrible. Whoever's going to do that scheduling, shame on you. Rivalry weekend should always be Thanksgiving Day weekend, and Ohio State Michigan should be at 3:30. I'm done with my rant when it comes to that.
Oh man, you were just getting rolling too. We'll have to double back on that later on. Great to catch up as always. Every Monday, a Boren Blitz on the beat to get the week started off right. Ohio State crushes Minnesota to move to 5-0, still undefeated, still number 1 in the country. 42-3 win over the Gophers. Up next, Illinois next week, and we will break it down. Whatever happens for Ohio State with Zach Boren right back here next week. For Zach, I am Austin Ward. Thanks so much for joining us on 97.1 The Fan, 10 TV, 10 TV Plus, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get the podcasts. We appreciate you following along, and we'll talk to you with Zach Boren again next week. See ya.